Hi there, I'm Mrs. Pasquan, and today you're going to be adding color to your landscape paintings. If you chose to use watercolor, you're going to need to get yourself set up with some liquid watercolors, a cup of water, some table salt that I have in that little white cap there. You're going to need a paper towel and a paintbrush. Now you might choose to stick with realistic colors like this painting by Paul Cézanne, or maybe you want to go for the more wild landscapes like the Fauve painters in France. This castle painting by Paul Klee has probably 8 or 9 different values of the color red, so you could stick with a monochromatic color scheme and just throw in a few more other colors for contrast. There are a few techniques I'd like to share with you before you get started, and one of them is creating a watercolor wash. Whenever you wash color over a large area of your page, it's called a wash. Normally, if I wanted it to be a really smooth wash, I would wet the paper first. Because we painted our lines with tempera paint, which is water soluble, I don't want to get it wet. So for this technique, I'm actually going to be painting wet on dry. And before that big area of green dries, I'm really quickly going to add some yellow and see if I can turn that into a gradient. A gradient is when you gradually change from one color to another. Sometimes it's light to dark, sometimes it's one color to another. And so while that green paint is wet, I am painting a layer of yellow, and I'm using my brush to just see if I can gently blend them in the middle. And before that has a chance to dry, I'm going to grab some of the table salt and just sprinkle it all over the wet paint. You can only do this one area at a time because once the paint dries, this technique isn't going to work anymore. But once the salt dries, I've zoomed into the painting so you can see some of those beautiful textures that happen because the salt starts to repel the color and you get these beautiful textures. Unfortunately, you have to wait for the paint to dry before you're really going to see the final results. So I'm just going to keep working on my landscape, adding one section of color at a time. Try to make sure that in between each of your colors, when you wash your brush, you don't just dip it in the water, but you actually wipe it off on a paper towel. While that area is wet, I'm going to go in and sprinkle some salt and see if I can get some more of those beautiful textures into my landscape. In case you're wondering, adding the salt is optional. If you don't want your painting to have texture and you want it to have nice flat colors, then you can just skip the salt part of this project and just keep working with your watercolor washes. That should be enough to get you started. Just remember to keep your colors wet if you're going to try to blend them together, and also if you're going to be using salt to add texture. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Good luck!